Well, hello and welcome to the Soft UK podcast. I'm Kate Hart and I'm the Communications Officer for the charity Soft, which is an organisation which supports families affected by trisomy 13 and trisomy 18. The podcast today is a family story and a look into the lives of the Huxholds and their special daughter, Fiona. I'd like to welcome Brandon, who's Fiona's dad, joining us from Illinois in the US. Hi, Brandon.
Hi.
So thanks so much for joining me today, and a very warm welcome. Could you start off by telling our listeners today about your family setup at home and who lives with you there?
Yeah, sure. I'm Brandon Huxhold, and my wife is Katie Huxhold. We have three children, including Fiona. Oldest daughter is Anya, and she is 10. Middle child Xander, he is 6, and then Fiona will be 2 in less than a month.
Oh, amazing, amazing. So perhaps we could start off looking at the diagnosis. So maybe you could tell us about your wife's pregnancy with Fiona, and when she was diagnosed, and just take us through that journey, please.
Yeah, so we were both about 38 years old when we found out we were pregnant with Fiona. And so we went through the geriatric pregnancy protocols, as they call it. And so we did a blood test around 12 weeks to check for Down syndrome, as well as gender or whatever. But we never even knew what Edwards syndrome was, or trisomy 18. And so we got back the results that said that Fiona was 91% positive to have trisomy 18. And so we were like, okay, what is that? And so we went online to look it up, and that's not really the best thing to do.
No.
Because if you go online and Google it, you're running into a lot of what I like to consider horror stories or worst case scenarios. So they talk a lot about death online and stuff, and I didn't like that, and so that was sort of the reason for me starting out our TikTok page to spread some awareness about the condition and show some of the positives and what could happen instead of a guaranteed death sentence, which is what the internet leads you to believe. So that was our introduction to trisomy 18. And so throughout the pregnancy, Fiona measured fine. So she was always a little small, but she didn't really have any markers or anything like that would really show that she would have had trisomy 18. So in the back of our minds, we thought, well, maybe she's in that 9% false positive situation. And so we went to MFM, maternal fetal medicine, and then back to the OB, back and forth every couple of weeks to do ultrasounds and to check on her progress. And most of the time she was doing fine. Her heartbeat was strong. We did do a fetal echo to see what her heart might look like, and everything checked out there. They did find a small like PDA, but they said that would close up on its own and no issues there. So
Brandon, may I just stop you there? What is a fetal echo? I've not heard of that before.
So a fetal echocardiogram is an echocardiogram that they do on the baby in utero.
Okay.
Yeah, so they have a special way of getting in there through ultrasound, and they can actually look at the baby's heart while in utero. So a lot of times they'll so cardiologists a lot of times will either dispel any concerns, or they can find other things that they may a typical ultrasound may not find. So yeah, there's a lot of more in-depth that can be seen on the fetal echocardiograms.
Okay, and you didn't opt for a CVS or an amniocentesis during the pregnancy? for definitive
We did not.
results?
Yeah, we did
Okay.
not. And the only reason was because there is a very small chance of miscarriage with regards to
Yeah.
amniocentesis. I think it's only about 1%.
Mm.
But to us, that wasn't really, something we wanted to risk. And,
Yeah.
for us, there was no thoughts of terminating the pregnancy anyways, so
Yeah.
it didn't really matter. And
Yeah.
and that was something that was suggested to us in the beginning, was to have an abortion or do a termination of the pregnancy,
Yeah.
which we declined.
Well, I was interested to know how it was all communicated to you and handled this diagnosis. So you were obviously offered the termination you've mentioned, but were you dealt with compassion? Was there sensitivity around how this diagnosis was shared with you? How did you find that whole experience?
uh I wouldn't say compassion. I would say it was more them spewing out some stats that they've collected
Mm.
from wherever. We
Mm.
so after we found the diagnosis, we met with a geneticist on a phone call. So nothing in person or anything, just a phone call, and they went
Mm.
over all the different grim stats that are associated with trisomy 18. And I remember during that call just kind of blanking out, because it just sounded like it was going to be the worst case scenario.
Mm.
And
Mm.
they just kept trying to tell us stuff, and I didn't want to hear any more of it.
Yeah.
And then we hung up, and we sat and cried for a long time, because it was emotional. We weren't sure what was going to happen. We knew nothing about this. And so that's kind of what kicked me to want to learn more about it, and try and tell everyone I could about it. The OBGYN was very pushy with regards to termination. She was not very hopeful at all. The MFM was more hopeful, because they did the in-depth ultrasounds, and they were looking where they go in and they measure everything, and it's about a 2-hour ultrasound. So they were a lot more positive, because they saw that Fiona was doing okay. But yeah, I mean, I wish that when a diagnosis like that is given, that there was some sort of way to portray it like, hey, here's your possible outcome, looking at Fiona or several of the other children that I've come to know over the last couple of years, versus your baby's probably going to die.
Yeah, it's not very well communicated often that it is a spectrum, and that children can be affected anywhere on that spectrum.
Correct.
Yeah, it's not right that it's handled so poorly, really. But it
Yeah,
seems
and
like a
I run
worldwide
into it
thing.
a lot. Yeah, I run into it a
Mm.
lot, where I talk to a lot of parents over here in the States, who are going through this, or who have just received their diagnosis, and they tell me all the same sort of stories, where they're not getting a lot of hope. And that's really what we're trying to instill, is the possible outcomes.
Yeah.
Yes, your baby can pass away, right? It's not like there is definitely a good chance, but
Mm.
there's a lot of babies who do survive, and a lot of babies who do
Yeah.
very well.
Yeah, exactly. It's a fine balance between sharing the facts and giving a little bit of hope, but not false hope. Yeah, it's a very fine line.
So she was diagnosed with trisomy 18, that 91%, and that really did help when delivery time came. My wife was induced, and Fiona was having a lot of trouble regulating her heartbeat. It was going up and down, and the OB on staff at the time said, "Well, I think we should probably do a emergency C-section." So we went in and did the emergency C-section, and she came out. She was about 4 pounds 9 ounces, so not super teeny tiny, but
Right,
not
right.
not full term for sure.
Yeah.
And So I really think that knowing helped us in that situation, because if we
Mm,
didn't know, we might have tried to deliver,
mm,
typically, and she might
mm,
have, not made it. So it does
mm.
help to know, um,
Yeah,
to know the diagnosis.
yeah. From your point of view, it was definitely a good thing in that situation.
Yeah.
And how did she cope in the first few days? I mean, what was she like?
So she had a lot of trouble with her blood sugars. They were really low, and she couldn't latch on to breastfeed, and it was really mostly because her mouth was so small. She was just so teeny tiny.
Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
And so we tried to give her some breast milk via a little tiny, teeny tiny tube, and
Mm,
that didn't work. And we didn't want to do formula or anything like that. We wanted to
mm,
make sure that she was taking in breast milk. And so she had to go to the NICU for a couple days. So she was in the
mm,
NICU, where they hooked her up to a billion machines and
mm.
kept pricking her foot,
No.
every couple hours. And so that was, it was tough to watch, right? You never want
Yeah,
your baby to be in that situation.
no.
But comparatively to other, parents that we've seen and known, uh, it's been, her situation was, really well, really,
Mm,
really went well. So she was in the NICU for a day, and then she went down to the step down NICU. And then we got to take her home after that, because she passed
amazing.
her blood sugars. She got up to where she needed. And we were really pushing. We were like, we're not staying in this hospital any longer than we
Yeah,
need to. Uh,
yeah, yeah, I'm
and
sure. I'm sure you just wanted to get her home and let her meet her siblings and yeah, have that time with her.
yeah,
And so how were
so
you feeding her when she got home?
well, hey, real quick, I want to tell a funny story about when
Yeah.
we left the hospital. So the car seat that we had, and this maybe is a good tip.
Okay.
So the car seat we had was 6 pounds and up. So she was still like under 5 pounds when we brought her home, and so
Mm.
we had to have somebody like bring us a 5 pound and under car seat, so
Oh
we
wow.
could actually bring her home, because they weren't going to let us bring her home in the car seat that we had.
Wow.
Well,
Insane. I didn't
yeah.
know they did such things. I didn't know such car seats existed, so I've learned something today.
Yeah, and they really are very strict about it here. When
Okay.
you want to bring your baby home, you can't just
Mm,
bring your baby home. They have to like
no.
check out things and everything.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Um,
So what was your question then?
no,
I know
you've
I
yeah,
interjected with that.
no problem. I was gonna ask how you were feeding her when was it still tube fed with express milk when she got home?
Yeah, so we were doing express milk, and then we were feeding her via bottle. So we were feeding her as much as we could, and my wife was continually trying to breastfeed, and it
Mm,
really wasn't working. And so for the first 3 or 4 months, we were up like every 2 hours at night.
mm,
My wife was pumping, and
mm,
I was feeding Fiona with the bottle, and
mm.
so we were just, I don't even like to joke about it, but I say we were literally just keeping her alive like every two
Yeah,
hours, just trying to feed her,
yeah,
and trying to get her as much food as possible. And then one day it just clicked. She was
mm.
able to latch on, and she was able to start nursing, and she's still nursing. She's almost two. She's
Oh,
still nursing today. So she
that's
she
amazing.
um, she still loves it. She still she still loves that bond with her mother, and she's really starting to eat a lot of other foods too. So I don't know if at some point she's gonna like wean herself, but I
Yeah.
think she'll go as long as she can.
Yeah, and like you say, what a special bond, and she's getting all that goodness from her mother, so that's amazing. So lovely. So she obviously just grew big enough and strong enough to be able to do that because I think breastfeeding does take a lot out of them.
Yes.
So you guys obviously got her to a point where she was big enough and strong enough to do that for herself. That's amazing. It's lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely to hear that.
One thing that we think was kind of an issue with the latching was she had a severe lip tie and a severe tongue tie.
Oh,
So
wow.
when she was about 6 weeks, maybe it was even 2 months, we went and got that repaired.
Okay.
Which all they do is they cut it here, and then
Mm.
for the next 2 weeks, you get to do the wonderful thing where you just pull their mouth back, so you continue to keep that open.
Wow. Okay.
It was quite a process. So you have to like push their tongue back so it doesn't grow back.
Oh, okay. Okay. So you're literally
Yeah.
preventing it from just growing back. I see.
Yeah, and you have to do that like a few times a day for a couple of weeks. But that was, I
Okay.
think, one of the things that was causing her not to be able to latch on, or at least
Yeah.
continue to get milk in. So yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, just all sorts of things in the beginning with the feeding process. But again, I say that our situation, I don't even think was comparable to a lot of parents who have to go,
Mm,
deal with a G tube or any other thing.
mm.
So we feel very fortunate in that.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And her siblings tell us about her meeting them and how they've adapted to her in their lives.
Yeah, so we brought her home, and then she got to meet both her siblings, and they each got to hold her. And at this point, we didn't know 100% for sure if she had trisomy 18 or not. So
Mm,
they took blood from her umbilical cord, and we're testing it. So at this point, we just brought her home, not really knowing what to expect. And
mm.
so we just everybody held her as much as we could, and her brother and sister love her so much, and now it's fun to watch them, how they bond.
Mm.
She drives her big brother nuts because she likes to take all his toys, and it's
Typical.
yeah, and she's and big sister is has formed a really a special bond with her, where she's holding her a lot and doing a lot of fun things with her.
That's
But yeah,
amazing.
siblings love it, love her to death, and it's just great.
So, what happened with the results of the test? How long did you wait, and what did they say?
Yeah, so we waited for what felt like forever, but I think it was only maybe 10 days. So
Hmm.
they called us, and I guess they had several neonatologists look at the results, and so they called us and told us that she was, positive for trisomy 18. However, only 83% of the cells were showing that they had the extra chromosome. And so they told us about mosaicism. And then, of course, I did a bunch of research on mosaicism.
Of course.
But
Hmm.
mosaicism kind of unlocks some different doors in the trisomy 18 realm. I like to, obviously it's a spectrum, but from my experiencing my experience, mosaicism babies tend to do a little bit better. And from that, we've kind of found that Fiona has her own little way of doing things. That's usually like at 2/3 speed. Uh,
Okay.
but she always gets there. She always
Yeah.
gets to where she needs to go. So after that, so after they told us that, we met again with a geneticist, and this is all during COVID, right? So
Mm.
a lot of this is we didn't physically meet a geneticist till like a year, you
Um,
know, because we met on Zoom, and
yeah.
we talked with them on Zoom, and the geneticist said one thing to us that really stood out. She said that you know Fiona might just do just fine, or she might just pass away in her sleep. And I'm like, we heard
Wow.
that
What a thing to
we heard that
say.
we heard that we started freaking out, and then so then that was part of TikTok was I talked about that, and then people flooded me with information about different monitors to put on their feet or whatever, and so I feel like just spreading that awareness is so helpful to not just
Yeah.
us, but anybody who might be going through this. And it's not like trisomy 18 is going to go away, right? It's it's something that is something that just happens, and it's going to continue to happen, and so people are going to need to have that knowledge and that awareness.
Brilliant. Brandon, you've kind of touched on, she's cheeky with her siblings and that kind of thing, and she takes a little while to get things right, but she gets there in the end. Tell us more about Fiona. What is she like? What is she into? What can she do? I mean, we'd love to know more about her.
So right now, she is walking almost exclusively. She
Wow.
which is amazing. It's still hard for me to even believe when I see her do it, because we didn't know what to expect, right? And it was a gradual thing. So she didn't really start fully walking until like about January of this year. So she was 22 months when that started happening. So she's walking around and getting into everything. She loves to climb on most everything. She's a daredevil. She likes doing all sorts of silly things. She'll like stand up on her rocking chair and like down, down, down.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so she's a hoot. She's always doing something silly. And she's trying to say a lot of words now. So she's trying to mimic us when we say something. Not necessarily like on her own will she try to say something, but she'll try to mimic us and try to get us to understand what she's wanting. And she is the happiest little baby or toddler I've ever known. Just so happy, just always smiling. It's funny because she is a product of COVID and quarantine, right? So whenever she goes out in public, she is hi to like everybody. She's waving to everybody because she's been home with us.
Yeah. Oh, bless her. That's lovely.
So she loves going out in public.
Oh, that's amazing. I thought you were going to say she's shy and she gets overwhelmed, but it's lovely that it's had the opposite effect on her.
No, she's totally outgoing. A lot of times, people come over and she's meeting them for the first time. She's a little shy, but I think that's what you'll find with most kids, right?
Exactly. And you say she's eating, so is that solids? Is she can process that?
Yeah. So the only thing with her is that, we do therapies with her, right? So we do 3 different therapies. We do physical therapy once a week, and then we do developmental therapy once every 2 weeks, and then we do speech and I don't know, speech and eating therapy, whatever. And so they've been kind of helping her with that. So yeah, she eats solids. She'll eat, she'll eat pretty much anything. The only thing with her, she likes to tuck it all in her cheeks, so she'll have a big cheek full of stuff.
Oh, sweetie. Sounds like a real character.
Oh yeah, she is. And if you ever look at the TikTok page, you'll see that. I try to show that and portray it.
Yeah. Well, that actually leads me nicely into the next question about your TikTok page. So first of all, can you tell our listeners where they can find you on TikTok? What is your account name, please?
Yeah, so the name is Toddler Fiona, just how it's spelled. It's on TikTok. So if you look up Toddler Fiona, you'll see it. And the first pinned video I have is a 3-minute overview of what trisomy 18 is.
Awesome.
But that to me is obviously the most important thing, is telling people about the awareness and everything, and trying to show a more positive outlook on what trisomy 18 can be.
That's amazing. And it sounds like it's something you started as soon as you guys got the initial diagnosis. So it's something you've been doing for almost 2 years, or over 2 years.
Well, yeah. So I started it after she was born.
Okay.
She was about a week or 2 weeks when I started it. Um,
Okay.
and yeah, because like I said, once we were in it, we're in it, right?
Mm,
Because we didn't
mm,
know, we never knew for sure because we never did the amniocentesis. So once we
yeah.
got that result back, I reached out, and that first video I had got 200,000 views or something like that,
Wow.
and it was amazing to see how many other people um, knew somebody or had a
Mm,
baby that had trisomy 18 or has a baby that has it. It was incredible to see how many people actually came out of the woodwork,
amazing.
so to say.
And it's lovely that you've used your experience and now you're helping to support other families and spread awareness and correct information about these conditions. So that's amazing.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and that was the goal, help out. At first it was really more of a therapy for myself, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't know what's going to happen,
No.
and I was
Yeah.
really
It's really
trying to
trying.
talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And Brandon, I know that you've heard about Easter Enders and the storyline that they're currently running on Edward syndrome. Love to know what your views are on that from across the oceans.
Yeah, so I actually heard about it from somebody in London who
Hmm.
watches the show or whatever, and
Yeah.
so she posted on Facebook about it because we're friends, and I was like, oh,
Mm,
that's interesting, and
mm,
so I did a little research on it, and somebody from Soft UK actually reached out to me and said, hey, we actually helped a lot with that show.
mm,
And
mm.
so I've just it's snowballed from there. So now
Yeah.
I downloaded BritBox, and I've been
Mm.
watching it. I haven't caught up yet because I'm still, I have a million shows I got to watch.
Yeah.
But so far I love it. It's been really, really well done, and you can really tell that somebody who is familiar with Edward syndrome has been influential in the
Mm,
show. Like, you can really tell that because they're going through some things and talking about some things that you might not necessarily know if you didn't have that influence.
mm,
So
mm.
far I love it. It's been great. I can't wait to see what else happens from me.
Oh, well, that's great feedback. It's nice to know that it has been handled sensitively, which is exactly what Soft's objective was to make sure that, the storyline is always going to be the storyline that EastEnders wanted to go with, but at least we could influence how it was handled in communication, which, we've discussed isn't always the greatest for medical professionals. So if we could just try and change that. And then therefore the knock-on effect out there, people never having heard of this is their first experience. It's important that it was a positive experience that they're watching. So yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, Brandon, before we wrap up today, is there anything else that you'd like to add or anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, I guess in terms of awareness, so me and a group of people over here in the States, we've started what is known as the Edward Syndrome Association.
Mhm.
It's not official yet, so but we're really trying to work to help families. We're also working to help educate doctors and geneticists on how to portray this condition, as well as put information out there that shows how to live day to day with the condition. So yeah, it's something
Amazing.
that we're really proud of and we're really working hard at.
That sounds like a fantastic initiative and such important work. So well done on getting that together, and I wish you all the best for the future with that. The Edward
Thank you.
Syndrome Association, you say?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes,
okay,
Edward
fantastic.
Syndrome Association, or ESA, is what we've been calling it internally. But
Okay,
we should be official by March or April.
okay. Well, March would be a good one. Trisomy Awareness Month. That would be a good time to be
Yeah,
official.
we're really hoping we get it by the 18th. So we'll see.
That would be amazing. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Brandon, to you, and thanks to everyone listening today. And we hope that this was useful to find out a bit more about trisomy 18 and what living with trisomy can be like. I mean, it's not always going to be like this, but it's one example, and what an uplifting and sort of story filled with hope this one has been. So thank you. And just to say, whether you're an expectant parent or a bereaved parent, a family member, or a professional, if you need support or information, we are here for you. So please reach out to Soft, and our contact details can be found in the podcast blurb. Thanks again.